Good morning, my name's Chris Bedell and I'm the Head of Advocacy at the Glass and Glazing Federation, and today I'm here with my colleague Dave.
Hi there, I'm Dave and I am the Head of Inspection and Assessment at the GGF.
And today we want to talk to you about approved document F1 ventilation. Many of you have been asking questions of us about the implications of the document, which was actually published in December last year. And the document comes into force on the 15th of June 2022. So it's only a few months away now. And what we want to do is give you as much information as possible so that you can make sure that you're ready for the changes that are coming. When the document came out in December, there was a lot of discussion about whether trickle vents would be needed or not. And what we're going to do is take you through some of the scenarios that exist, but we'd always ask you to go back to the approved document, which is readily available and free to download from the government website, and make sure you read it for yourself and see all of the implications and changes that are in there. The major change in the document is that the majority of replacement windows and doors will be required to have trickle vents, or background ventilation as it's better known, from the 15th of June this year. Existing windows that already have trickle vents will be required to have trickle vents put back and to at least the minimum size that already exist. But all other windows, apart from the exemptions, which will be historic buildings, conservation areas, which are listed in the document, will be required to have them. And there are new sizing and equivalent areas that are required as well. So it's really important that you have a look at the document and make sure that you familiarise yourself with it. But I'm really pleased to say that FENSA has produced a handy guide, which is available and has already been sent out to the majority of FENSA members. And it goes through a series of questions. And depending on whether you answer yes or no to those questions, it actually gives you advice on whether you should install trickle vents or not. And there are other scenarios that need to be taken into account, like mechanical heat ventilation, etc. All FENSA approved installers are required to have annual assessments. And so from the 15th of June, when we come out to do those visits, we will be looking for compliance with approved document F1. That means that the assessors that we send out will be asking you questions and also be looking at the installations, which we use an example of your work to actually see that where trickle vents are required, they've been fitted. Dave, when your assessors go out and they're going out every day and seeing multiple assessments from the 15th of June itself, what will they be actually looking for when they approach an installation?
When they assess an installation, they will be looking at the same 6 questions that we're going to put out in the guidance. So we'll start off with our trickle vents previously installed, and therefore they need to be replaced as they were at the very minimum. So when we're on site, we'll be looking at habitable rooms and non-habitable rooms. So in habitable rooms, you must put 8,000 millimetres of equivalent area of ventilation in. That includes kitchens. And if you are working in non-habitable rooms, that's bathrooms, with or without a toilet, you must put 4,000 millimetre equivalent area of trickle vent in.
So Dave, we've had a lot of questions from installers about whether jobs sold before the 15th of June have to be fitted with trickle vents or not.
So there is no transition period. All windows fitted from the 15th of June onwards, this building regulation is applicable. There is no transition period at all.
So if a product's sold now for installation after the 15th of June, then the new requirements for trickle vents must be taken into account?
Absolutely, yes.
So Dave, what actually happens when you turn up at the curbside to do an inspection?
Okay, so when we first turn up to visit an installer, we'll ask for a copy of the survey and the contract. We will review those first of all. We'll introduce ourselves and go for a wander around the property with the installer to see what's been fitted and basically check that out. Okay, so when we turn up on site, the first things we ask for are the contract and the survey and MTC cards. We review those, then we'll take a tour of the property. We'll be looking at all the building regulations, but specifically for document F, we will be looking at trickle vents and purge ventilation. For trickle vents, we are looking, if they were there previously, they need to go back no worse than you found them. If you have no vents currently, you need to put 8,000 millimetres equivalent area back in habitable rooms and kitchens. And if you have in non-habitable rooms, you need to put 4,000 millimetres back equivalent area, that is bathrooms with or without a toilet. However, if you feasibly can't get that amount of ventilation in, you just have to get in what you can. So yeah, we're not asking people to start putting trickle vents in the sides and all over the place. You need to put back as close to the requirement as possible.
Since the publication of the document in December 2021, the GGF has been in discussions with the government and other stakeholders about the changes to the requirements, especially around the requirement for trickle vents or background ventilation to be installed in the majority of replacement windows and doors. This has involved putting evidence forward because there is a contradiction between approved document L, which is for energy efficiency, which again from the 15th of June will require all windows and doors to be more energy efficient, and then approved document F1 requires us to punch holes in them and put trickle vents in effectively. So there is a contradiction between asking for windows and doors to be more energy efficient to keep our homes warmer, but also the government's need to actually have healthier homes with increased ventilation. And that's something that we've made government very much aware of, and the stance on that and information from our installers and the wider glazing community. We've had a number of questions about how this will be enforced from the 15th of June. And that's why we've put guidance on our website, and we'll be writing to all of our FENSA approved installers as well. The government is very unlikely to change its mind on these requirements. They are fairly well cast in stone. We've been asked for FENSA's view on the changes to approved document F1. And the government's view is that the timeline is not going to change, and that the requirements as set out in the document which was published in December will be implemented at that date and must be adhered to. And that's why we've put guidance out to all of our FENSA approved installers to make sure they're aware of the changes and give them some time to adapt. Now, this is going to mean that you'll probably have to go and speak to your systems houses and your fabricators and have some discussions around these changes on what you're going to be able to do to make sure that you can comply with this new document. Another question that we're often asked is, what conversation should I be having with my homeowners at the moment? Well, if the installation is going to take place after the 15th of June this year, then it's very important that the homeowners are aware that there are changes to the regulations. Not only will they need to have more energy efficient windows, but they will need to have background ventilation, which the majority of which will be through trickle vents. Now, there are many benefits of having background ventilation, and again, there will be information supplied which can be used, so this can be imparted to homeowners about these important changes. So Dave, what evidence would it be useful for installers to have ready for when they're going to be assessed?
Okay, so we always recommend that during survey and pre-installation that photographs are taken, not only of the windows but also the surrounding area as well. This helps prove if there's any problems later on down the line. But when it comes to ventilation, specifically if you are taking out existing vents, if you can have photographs or proof that you are making it no worse, that will make life a lot easier later on down the line.
So Dave, is it important that this information is on the survey sheet and on the quote to the homeowner?
Absolutely. The salesman should be letting everybody know that they're going to be putting vents in from the 15th of June. But it's the surveyor that needs to pick up exactly the amount of ventilation and where they're going to go. It should be noted on the survey, and ideally it should be shown to the homeowner and countersigned.
So what can you do to make sure that you're ready for the changes? Well, there are a number of things that you can do straight away. The FENSA installer portal has quite a lot of information that you can have a look at. There's information there on the sizes of trickle vents and equivalent area that will be required. There's also a training course. So the FENSA Training Academy has a 1-hour building regulations course, and that also considers the changes to the approved documents. And there's a guide. As we mentioned earlier, that guide has a series of questions, and when you go through them, you'll actually be able to determine whether trickle vents are required or not in a particular situation. But the most important thing to do is to download or go online and have a look at approved document F1, because that is the document that we are going to assess you against to make sure you have the knowledge, competency and understanding. I can see why trickle vents are good for healthy homes, but there must be situations, Dave, where someone lives near a busy road where other considerations maybe have to be taken into account.
Absolutely. If the property faces onto a very busy road and pollution levels are high, then you don't need to put trickle vents on the front of that building, on the building part facing the road, but they will need to be put on the opposite side of the building from the road.
So Dave, I understand that although the majority of properties will have to be fitted with trickle vents, there are some alternatives as well. Can you just give us a brief explanation of what they are and how they should be considered?
So there are some alternatives. If the property has a mechanical heat recovery system, then you don't need to put vents in. These can be retrospectively installed, but they are very expensive, and if that was to be the case, they'd have to go through local authority building control to be signed off. If you have continuous mechanical ventilation in the property, that can be a single ducted system or several independent fans, but they must be continuously running. They're usually in wet rooms such as bathrooms and kitchens, utility rooms, places like that. If that's the case, then you have to put 4,000 millimetres of equivalent area in all habitable rooms. but you don't put any vents into the rooms with the continuous mechanical ventilation.